The slap heard around the world. On the 27th of March 2022, the 94th Annual Academy Awards were presented at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood. Yet nobody remembers that the Best Picture award was won by the film Coda, Best Actress was won by Jessica Chastain in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and that the Best Actor award went to Will Smith for his role in King Richard. Instead, the moment that everyone remembers is when Will Smith walked up onto the stage and slapped Chris Rock in the face. Since then, there has been much speculation as to why Will Smith did this, but that is beyond the scope of this video essay. Instead, we will examine the available video footage to determine the mechanics of what actually happened and whether this affects what is understood about this event. In a close examination of the broadcast footage, there appear to be several anomalies that are inconsistent with the commonly held view that Will Smith became angry with Chris Rock and spontaneously stormed onto the stage to slap Chris Rock's face. Let us examine these in detail. First, we will observe when Will Smith walks onto the stage, at no point does anyone try to stop or intercept him. Not security, not a stage manager, nor any other staff member. While minor in itself, this does seemingly add credence to the following observations, such as 2. That after the slap, no one moves to assist Chris Rock, the host of the event. Chris Rock has just been physically assaulted on stage, and at the time, if it were a genuine event, no one can determine how badly Chris Rock is injured. Yet there seems to be no response from the stage crew, the stage manager, or security. Chris Rock himself does not check with the offstage crew or in any way signal to say that he is okay, but is just left standing on the stage and makes a joke. Point 3. Talking of the broadcast, all of this is an event that was transmitted live. Showing the slap on screen would be inconsistent with standard procedures of live broadcasts, as most live transmissions have a 6 to 8 second transmission delay. This is so that if any untoward event was to occur, then the program director can activate this delay and the event will not be broadcast. An alternative option is for the program manager of the broadcast to jump to a commercial break while they figure out what has happened. This would be a logical course of action when the lead star of a broadcast is assaulted live on stage and it is uncertain how serious the situation actually is. A fourth point, just before Will Smith storms onto the stage, Chris Rock stands there and he puts both of his hands behind his back. This is the first time during this clip that he actually does this. After Chris Rock places both his hands behind the back, Will Smith stands up and walks onto the stage. As Will Smith approaches, you can see that Chris Rock actually leans slightly forward and therefore his jaw is protruding. Putting one's hands behind one's back is a sign of confidence, or that one does not need to defend themselves. But leaning forward slightly and extending one's chin, this is very unusual behaviour. Most people would bring up their hands in a warding off gesture, or at least put them between, or at least would put their hands between them. They would not stand there holding their hands behind their back, presenting their chin as a target. The fifth point deals with the actual physical assault. As Will Smith goes to strike Chris Rock, it can be seen that Will Smith goes up onto his toes. This is very unusual behaviour for one person striking another. One must remember that Will Smith once trained as a boxer for several months for the film Ali. As a trained boxer, a slap is a very strange strike to even consider. But also as a trained boxer, it would be very hard for Will Smith to actually strike Chris Rock while on his toes. This strike goes against all of the training that Will Smith would have had. A sixth point to note is that Chris Rock rides the attack perfectly. As you can see in the video, as Will Smith slaps Chris Rock moves with the attack. At no point does he try to bring up his hands from behind his back to defend himself. This is very unusual in the case of a surprise attack. Most people will attempt to put a barrier between the aggressor and themselves. A seventh point is the reaction speed of Chris Rock. As can be observed from the video, it is very fast. Very, very fast. If looking at the film footage, if we run it forwards frame by frame, it can be seen that it is 3 frames from when Will Smith starts to move his hand until when Chris Rock starts to move. Count them. 1, 2, 3 frames. At 30 frames per second, 3 frames represents a time of 0.1 seconds or 100 milliseconds. In the case of a startle response, where someone is reacting to an unexpected situation, the typical reaction time is around 1.2 seconds, not 0.1. However, for a trained athlete waiting in the start blocks, a reaction time of between 0.1 and 0.2 seconds is quite common. But that is for a fully prepared, practiced person waiting for a pre-arranged signal. A surprise reaction time of 0.1 seconds is impossible, especially if you note that Will Smith's hand starts from below his waist. This means it's below Chris Rock's sight line. So, for at least 1 frame or 2 frames, he can't even see the hand moving, yet he reacts perfectly to the strike in less than 0.07 seconds. Any Olympic sprinter that reacted that fast would be disqualified. While this reaction speed would be possible if it was a carefully rehearsed sequence, it would be unlikely that he could react that fast for a totally unprepared reaction. So these anomalies present us with 3 possible scenarios that need to be explored. The first is that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock in a totally unplanned event. However, this seems unlikely as the reaction time of Chris Rock is incredibly fast for an unprepared person. Also, it does not explain the other anomalies. A second option is that Will Smith and Chris Rock pre-arranged the event without letting anyone else know. In this scenario, they would have rehearsed this event privately and then presented it without the Academy's knowledge. This would explain points 4, 5, 6, and 7, which covers the actual assault, and this could be a complete explanation if points 1, 2, and 3 are just coincidence or the reactions of a totally stunned program crew. A third scenario would be that Will Smith and Chris Rock rehearsed and presented this event with the knowledge and coordination of the award show organisers. This would not only explain the extraordinary reaction speed of Chris Rock, but also why no one interfered with Will Smith or Chris Rock as Will Smith walked onto the stage, slapped Chris Rock, and then left. And it would also explain why this was broadcast to the world. The motivation for this event is beyond the scope of this video, but it should be noted that Will Smith was not expelled from the event, and in fact later that night was awarded the Best Actor award. The next day he resigned from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and was banned from any Academy events for 10 years after this. No criminal charges followed this event. Please note, the scenarios presented here are all pure speculation, and there may be other explanations that have not been presented here, but I will leave it to the viewer to decide which, in their opinion, is the most likely scenario. As this is a one-off presentation, there is no need to subscribe or follow me. Have a great life. Thank you.